All right, hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Origins of Today podcast. So, today's episode, we are going to be looking at the radicalization of sports in the past, rivalries, all the way from the medieval times, ancient Byzantine Empire, even to the Greek and Spartan city states. And we're going to look at all of that and then compare it to modern day sports and the rivalries and really radicalization that can develop from that and how it relates to political issues. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. We're going to get straight into it right after this intro.
And some, I assume, are good people.
Further note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima.
You need to pray for the good Lord to protect America.
Won the race of discovery against the Germans.
Sports have always brought people together. But on top of that, they've also divided, radicalized, and even brought cities to the brink of civil war. Does that sound extreme? Well, let's rewind nearly 1,500 years to the city of Constantinople. In the Byzantine Empire, they had chariot racing. In the Byzantine Empire, chariot races were entertainment, but that wasn't all. There were four main teams: the Reds, the Blues, the Greens, and the Whites. Two of the teams, the Blues and the Greens, had an extremely strong rivalry. Now, these teams each held their own separate political, religious, and personal identity from the others. So, obviously, this was going to create tension at some point. So, the Blues and the Greens, really, the Reds and the Whites were kind of irrelevant. They didn't really matter. They eventually got absorbed by either the Blues or the Greens. They acted as almost political factions. They were backed by powerful elites, and they had deep social and religious divides. I mean, to compare it today, think of it if, like, the Yankees and the Red Sox, they weren't just rivals, but they had their own political leader that they supported, and they also represented opposing political parties, religious sects, and neighborhood gangs all at once. I mean, it sounds absurd to us, but that's exactly what was happening in the streets of Constantinople. And in a way, we can almost see this to this day. We haven't quite gotten to the point where, teams are endorsing political parties, but we could get there one of these days. People get extremely radicalized over sports, and sports become their identity. Now, I don't think it's wrong to enjoy sports and enjoy the entertainment, but you can take it too far and completely get so absorbed into this world. Finally, these two teams came to head in the Nika riots. So, in 532 AD, tensions between the Blues and the Greens exploded after a chariot race, and it escalated into the Nika riots. So it was a full-scale rebellion, and for 5 days, Constantinople burned. Over 30,000 people were killed. Many important monuments were destroyed, even though they were later rebuilt under a more powerful emperor. I mean, so literally, sports almost destroyed the Byzantine Empire. The government couldn't control these crazed fans running through the streets, burning things and killing people. This is insane. How did we get to this point? Let's look at some more examples. Looking beyond the Byzantine Empire, we can go back in time even just a little bit to the Roman Colosseum, to an example that's probably familiar with most people. So the Romans were obviously no strangers to brutal entertainment. I mean, they would watch lions attack, slaves for fun. Gladiator games, they often served political purposes. So emperors really, if the people wanted to watch a gladiator fight, then he would hold a gladiator fight. It was a way to appease the masses in a way, which, if you think about it, is kind of brutal considering what was really happening in the Colosseum. But it's still a sport of a sort, you could say. But even here in Rome, where the crowds were supposedly being appeased by these brutal games, the crowds turned violent. Riots broke out when the fights were seen as unfair, or even some gladiators became local celebrities. Roman sports weren't just bloody, they were politically weaponized. And that's the thing. We have to look at this from not our perspective, but look at history from the perspective of the people living in it. Like I said, Romans were not unused to warfare. It was just their way of sports. You can still call it a sport. I think it's horrifying nowadays and barbaric, but it was a sport, and I'm sure people think it's weird. People in the future will think it's weird that we play a sport called basketball. It just all depends on your perspective. Obviously, it's a little bit extreme, but I mean, we even see here. Going back to the original point, even these can be politically weaponized, and fans can get so supportive of their favorite player, their favorite team, to where that supersedes all their other loyalties, like to their government, to their religion. It's fascinating. Now, going forward in time a little bit to the medieval times and Europe, they would play a sport called mob football, which is essentially the ancestor of soccer, which turned into brawls. Entire towns would participate, and injuries related to death were not uncommon. There were even royal decrees banning football because it was considered too violent and disruptive. Even in the Renaissance Italy, a game called Calcio Storico, a mix of soccer, rugby, and hand to hand combat, was played with almost no rules. It's even still played in Florence today, and broken bones are part of the tradition. I mean, violent sports were not unusual in in the past, in ancient societies. I mean, it's fascinating to kind of put yourself in their place, and that would have been normal to them to just go outside and just brawl with your buddy. And I know this isn't quite on topic with the comparing the past to the present, but I mean, let's even just take a moment to realize like how different the past is from the present. Imagine going outside and playing soccer, but you can just choke your brother out while you're doing it. It's fascinating. I really do think it's fascinating, these historical references, and even just seeing how themes repeat. Michael Knowles says something: history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And that's so true. It really doesn't repeat itself. And I know that's the whole point of the channel, is trying to figure out if history repeats itself or trying to predict the future, which I'm not actually trying to do. But I think this is really interesting to see how even ancient sports were incredibly similar to our sports nowadays. And we'll get into some modern events that are extremely radicalized. I assume a lot of you guys probably have your favorite sports teams. So yeah, we're gonna get straight into that. So in the 20th and 21st centuries, I mean, sports, they still have the power to unite. It's still something you can come together with your buddies. We watch the Super Bowl together, stuff like that. But they can also divide. So soccer hooliganism, I didn't know this was a thing until I looked it up. In Europe, and especially in the 80s and the 90s, it involved organized street gangs, and they attacked rival fans, police, and property. I think it's very strange. Obviously, I know these soccer matches can get really charged, especially relating to modern warfare. We can see. I believe it was in Amsterdam. I think there was some sort of Palestinian. So the Palestinians were angry because their team lost, or the Israelis were angry because their team lost, something like that. But they were just fighting in the streets. Someone compared it to a pogrom, which I'm not going to comment on that because I don't really know the context. But it's interesting. It's even related to modern conflicts. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting. A lot of these modern representations of radicalization in sports, I mean, you really have to look to Europe and soccer for it. Here in the States, we don't really get much of that. I think we're kind of getting there a little bit. People, I know, especially in baseball, can be extremely supportive of their teams and really hate some other teams. I don't think that they would go, shoot up the person of a house that likes the other team. I think everything has a path that it goes on. So if we are going to go on a path towards radicalization because of sports, then there are certain steps that need to be taken to get there. And I think one of them is this kind of, your identity should not be in your favorite sports team. None of it should be. It's a sports team. It's entertainment. And this brings us to the bigger idea of why do we follow these sports teams? Why do we care so much about these sports teams? Is it because they're good? Is it because they win? Maybe it's because it's our hometown. In which case, I mean, that'd be community ties. But it's interesting because I don't see much teams that are like religiously motivated or anything like that. It's just sports are not just games. I mean, they're tribes, rituals, identity in both ancient Constantinople and today. I mean, cheering for a team can mean much more than loving the game, and it can really reflect where you're from, what you believe in, or what you stand against. And I think it's fascinating because a lot of times this is done subconsciously. Personally, I'm a Christian. If I see a football coach pray before the game, of course I'm going to be cheering for their team. He just prayed. But have I already fallen prey to this kind of idea of I don't actually like this team because of the entertainment anymore. Now I like this team because it shares my religious identity. So I mean, next time, you're yelling at a ref at a game, or you're caught in a post-game brawl on X or something like that, just remember we've been doing this for thousands of years. And as ridiculous as it is, it really can lead somewhere. And like I said, I don't think we're that far along in the West, but it is fascinating to still draw echoes of history from the past to the present. So sometimes, we do that for the love of the game, and sometimes it's for the fight that comes with it. Winning an argument against another team, something like that. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, and tune in for our podcast for more deep dives into history and comparing it to present events. So, I hope you guys have a great day, and God bless.